I was in the 7th grade and had just walked to school early in the morning. It was the first class of the day, and I remember my science teacher explaining something on the board. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion right outside. It felt like something threw us on the ground, and even we kids knew war was starting. So at that moment, we thought our school was getting targeted. 2 minutes later, there was another explosion. The teacher yelled to get us under the ground and away from the windows. We weren't allowed to have our phones out, so we'd usually hide them in our bras. I pulled mine out and called my mom. She was crying. "I'm coming to get you. Bring any friends who need a ride." When my mom came, we ran to her car and piled in on top of each other. It was about 6 of us. I gave the other girls my phone so they can call their parents and let them know that they're alive. You can say I was born into conflict, but when I was born in Damascus, Syria, it was my parents' 4th try for a son after having 3 daughters. When my father came to the hospital and found out I was another girl, he went to the hallway and just bawled his eyes out. An imam came from the mosque, who was just walking by, and saw my father wearing this long white thobe, a traditional tunic. He stood beside my father and asked sympathetically if anyone in the family had died. "No," my father said, "but I just had my 4th daughter." The imam chatted with him for about an hour and told him that girls can be blessings from God. Feeling ashamed and feeling better, my father rushed in to see me. He carried me, and he later said that day, "I feel like someone opened my heart, put Rama in it, and locked it." I became his favorite daughter. During the week, we lived in the city with our mom and went to school. But I really looked forward to the weekends when we would drive up to my dad's village, where he lived in his own house. And there, I would be the son he never had. I would help him in his clothing stores, and I would even dress up like a boy with pants, and my hair was always pulled back. But my mom said I would embarrass her if I dressed that way in the city. She insisted that I dress up, especially for Eid and other holidays. She also wanted me to get married like my sisters. I had actually watched all my sisters lose their freedom as soon as they turned 14. They would have to stop going out and would be quickly married off as young as 16 years old in arranged marriages. No education and no space to dream. I knew it would be my turn very soon. One day, my father asked me the big question, "When are you going to cover your hair like your sisters?" "I'm not ready," I answered, hoping he wouldn't insist. He never asked again, but by then, the war had closed in around us with bombs everywhere, and our lives were destructed. One morning, my mom shook me awake. "Did you just hear this?" She had just heard a bomb go off and was afraid that explosions would be set near us. So we got quickly to her car to escape the danger, but all the roads were blocked off, and we had to pass where the explosion took off. Looking out the window, it had been a suicide bomb, and I saw pools of blood, even a whole hand just laying on the pavement. My mom shouted, "Close your eyes." But I didn't listen. It was too late. I had already seen those things, and it was the first time that I understood that I could die. Even though I'm still a child with no power to help myself, death can still happen to me. My parents were separated, which wasn't really typical in Syria, but they put up a united front to support their daughter's upcoming marriage arrangements. My dad lived in the high foothills with a view overstretching the orchards all the way to the Lebanese mountains. Usually at night, from our balcony, you can see the lights from the houses shine like someone had thrown glitter from the sky. One Friday night, when I was in the 7th grade, my mother was praying on the balcony, overlooking that peaceful view, and while I was swinging nearby, suddenly, the bullets went off, just like the movies. It kept coming closer and faster, but my mom would not stop praying. I shouted, "Stop praying, we need to go inside." She wouldn't listen. At least at the end, she did listen, and we rushed inside. I remember her calling my father to tell him not to come home that night because of his safety. It wasn't too cold, but I was freezing and very scared. I wore long pants, 2 sweaters, and was shivering all night. We drove back to the city the next day, and I never saw my village again. It was right around this time when the bomb near my school happened, and that's when my mom decided that we need to get you out of here. So she called my newly married sister in the United States and asked her to get us tourist visas. When my mom and I landed in San Diego the summer of 2012, it was such a relief to be away from the war and to be away from never knowing what would happen next. By the end of the summer, they enrolled me in school where I had to repeat the 7th grade again because my year had been interrupted. I didn't speak much English and didn't have any friends, so I would often eat lunch by myself. But that wasn't a problem because I thought I was going home one day. But because of family disagreements on how to handle things, my mom ended up having to leave me here while she went to be with my other sister in Egypt. And there, I lived with my oldest sister and her husband in San Diego. I felt like an outcast at home, just like I did at school. There was just so much conflict at home that my only way to be safe was to couch surf my friend's family every weekend until I finally moved out with them at the age of 14. But because my sister was my legal guardian, and when she and her husband had to move to Oregon, a social worker actually threatened me that she would deport me if I didn't go be with them. So I was stuck. It felt like the war had followed me to the United States. It had torn my family apart and left me here, alone, a child, with no parents to protect me. I came to Portland the summer of 2016, just right before my junior year of high school. And rather than just sit around at home and wait for school to start, I went downstairs and asked the nearby Subway for a job. Through chatting with my Subway manager at the time, I learned about De La Salle North Catholic High School, a private school that offers scholarships for people like me. Even though it was 9 months past their deadline to apply, I went there and talked to the president and told him my whole story, pouring my heart out. My mom left me here and I have to figure things on my own. He looked at me and said, "I would never let someone like you go." He enrolled me in their work-study program so I can pay for my own education, just like every other student at De La Salle. I usually sat in a little desk at my work-study program where I usually sealed envelopes and just did work. And one day, suddenly, for no absolute reason, tears were just dropping down my cheeks nonstop. My supervisor peeked her head over and asked me if I wanted to grab lunch. When I told her my story over lunch, I realized that the trauma of my story was still haunting me. And that sharing my story out loud is part of my healing process, a process that I'm still going through to this day. At De La Salle, I met great friends, had amazing teachers, and even had a couple of helpful mentors. And by the start of my senior year, I stopped asking for permission to do anything. I decided that I was a child of war. I was a victim of a story I never signed up for, and my only ticket to escape my difficult past was education. So I did the research. I found a scholarship for people like me, Syrians that had been affected by the war globally. I got enrolled in college on a full tuition, and I was the first female in my whole family to attend college. Since I last saw my parents, I have grown about 9 inches. I got adopted into a loving family where I feel at home. Today, I'm a senior, graduating on the dean's list, and I just got signed with a modeling management. Is everything perfect in my life? Not really, but I'm still learning to live with that, and I'm still growing and making my own decisions. Last time I saw my parents, I was 12 years old, and my whole family is scattered around the world today. But I'm very hopeful to see them one day and reunite. And I'm also very happy with the person I am today, and I would never choose a different life. Thank you.